for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after after 22 years. Raymond Mark!
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here in the Sick Podcast Network. Jimmy Murphy and Pierre McGuire here for you on a Wednesday as we really get into the Stanley Cup playoffs now. Pierre, some more great games last night. We'll get to that in a second. But just want to tell everybody quickly, shortly we will be joined by our good friend Chris Botta, who is one of the most tied-in reporters and also media relations with the New York Islanders. We'll get his take on the Lou Lamoriello, moving on from Lou Lamoriello and what the Islanders might do next shortly there. But let's look back at last night, Pierre, to the games there. I want to start with Ottawa and Toronto, Pierre. And look, I'm not saying by any means were they better the whole game. They still have a lot of work to do. But I was much more impressed with what I saw from the Ottawa Senators last night than what I saw in game one. And the other thing I will take, they lose 3-2 in overtime, but I do think there's good things to draw on. The other thing I want to get into too, and you and I already discussed it off the air, is the officiating. And I'm not blaming officiating by any means for the Senators losing that game. Not at all. As I asked you off air, and you explained it to me, and this is a fact that I don't know, sometimes fans don't understand this. There are players sometimes that get on the so-called list of NHL officials or, Department of Discipline, what have you. And it seems to me right now that really Greg is one of those players, Pierre, of the Ottawa Senators.
He's a lot like Brad Marchand. Marchand's on the list.
Exactly.
So this started a long time ago. It's not a newfangled thing. And the referees pay attention. Look, you know how players scout other players and coaches scout other coaches? Mm-hmm. Hockey operations scouts the players too. And the guys that are nice and the guys that are naughty. And Ridley Gregg, you can go back and look at it because I was working in Ottawa. He hit Pierre-Luc Dubois in an exhibition game in Winnipeg, and it was not acceptable. It was a bad hit, and he got suspended for it. And so what I did was I called Mark Chipman, the owner of the Winnipeg Jets. I did that as a management person in Ottawa because I didn't want the kid to get a reputation. Mm-hmm. And I said, could you do me a favor, Mark, and give me Pierre-Luc Dubois' phone number? I want Ridley to call Pierre-Luc Dubois and apologize. We never publicize it. There's no need to. Now we're 4 years past the prime, so I'm going to say it. And the kid did call. And Pierre-Luc Dubois was fantastic when he dealt with it. He was great. But the reason why I did it is for what happened last night. Mm-hmm. I didn't want him coming in the league with a reputation of, oh, boy, this guy's going to be bad news bears, and we're going to have to watch him all the time, and it's going to be no fun, and it's going to be a problem. And that's that, and I also didn't want our team to get a bad reputation. So it was a combination of things. So I have a lot of respect. First of all, Ridley's a really good player, number one. Number two, I had the honor of coaching his father, and his father was an outstanding player. His father was a very underappreciated player, and his dad's made a living in hockey for a very long time. He's an excellent scout. He works for the Philadelphia Flyers, and he's a real committed hockey guy. So I respect the family tremendously. But I also know I believe Ridley's on the list. And that's why what happened last night is what happened last night.
Right. And I think, as we saw with Brad Marchand, you may not ever get off it, but you can, what's the word I'm looking for? Fall down the list a bit.
You're deeper in the lineup. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're not they don't zero in on you as much, or they're like I'm not saying the calls are premeditated, but they're not already, when you're involved in something, they're already thinking, oh, this guy must have been the start of it, or let's look at what he did there. They're a little more open-minded when it comes to you. And that's something he'll probably learn to do over time. But that, when I saw that last night, and I know how upset Sens fans are, but I'm like, well, that's just the facts of it right now. And that's just the way it is. And it's not saying it's technically right, but that's the way it is.
Yeah. It's been like that for a long time. Now, I just want to say one thing, and you know how much respect I have for the officials. A few of them, I won't say their names, are very good friends of mine. I text with them quite often. Respect the heck out of them. And one of the things that really led to my higher level of respect for them was living with a lot of the referees for 2.5 months in the pod in Edmonton and seeing how professional they were away from the rink. their commitment to fitness, their commitment to how they lived, their learning, how much they spend learning and studying. They're very professional men. They really are. So I have a lot of respect for them. But I think this is an important thing too, Jimmy. There's a situation now in the league that's dangerous, and it's cross-checking. And I don't know.
So glad you're saying this,
Jimmy. I don't know who at Hockey Operations decided that we're going to let guys get away with cross checks, but we're going to call them for obstruction, or we're going to call them for hooking or for holding. But it's a flawed policy. Whomever put that in place, you don't have to say it publicly. Just internally say, you know what, we're going to correct this.
Yep.
Because now, if you look around and watch all the games like you do, I know because I text with you to check up on you. When you watch all the games, there's one thing that's standing out, and it's a bad habit. It's cross-checking. And in 2004 and 2005, when we had the summit on the rules that had to be changed, one of the great emphases that were put into those meetings, cross-checks in the slot and cross-checks into the boards, because they were tired of seeing guys' careers, whether it was Mike Bossy, the late Mike Bossy, or Mario Lemieux, all these great players, Dave Andrechuk, their back injuries from the cross-checks. And so players talked about that, coaches talked about that, GMs talked about it. Now, I don't know how publicized it was back then, because when you're in the bubble, you're in the bubble. You're not paying attention to what's going on outside. But that's what was going on. And now all of a sudden there's this hesitancy to call cross-checking. I think it's flawed. I think it's a major mistake.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And you make a good point there too, that it has a pattern of directly leading to career-ending injuries. So it's something that, they need to address for sure. Pierre, I totally agree with you on that. The other games, look, this is no knock on the Devils. We've both stated flat out that the reason we don't like the Devils in this series is because of their injuries. I thought maybe they could overcome them. I'm admitting I was wrong to this point so far, and it looks like I will be wrong when all is said and done. But it's just, Pierre, if that game doesn't show you how depleted they are and how they just can't play the game or execute the game plan that they want without the guys that aren't in the lineup, I don't know what does. They came out, they had a great start. I was saying to you, hey, they get out of this period 1-0, and they did. I said they're in good shape. But then you could see when they came out, it just started as like a snowball effect there. And the Hurricanes took advantage of it. And with the Hurricanes having that ability, I think one of their greatest strengths, Pierre, is their quick strike ability there and their transition game. With them being able to take advantage of tired legs on the New Jersey side, it just seemed inevitable as that game went on.
Jordan Martinick was a superstar last night.
He's such a good playoff player.
If I'd have been doing the game for TSN, I would have called him the McGuire monster. He was unbelievable. I saw some people were actually calling him monstrous, and I didn't hear any credit for the monsters.
No, yeah, I did too, Pierre.
It's okay.
Yeah,
I get it. TSN owns the copyright on that anyway, so I can't get any money for it. But honestly, it was Carolina's good. We know now. What I will say, though, this is a halfway New Jersey team. They're trying their butts off. They're trying their butts off. Come on.
Yeah.
They're missing too much. Let's just say, let's play role reversal. Jersey has all their injured guys, okay?
Yep.
And I'm going to take Jacob Slavin, and I'm going to take Sebastian Aho, and I'm going to take Brent Burns. I'm going to take those three guys off Carolina. But Jersey has everybody. You think there's a role reversal in the series?
Definitely.
Yeah, sure. I think so too.
Yeah.
So it's not on Jersey. I feel bad for Tommy Fitz.
That's where I want to go to.
I feel bad for Sheldon Keefe. I do. I feel bad for his staff because I think people are saying the wrong stuff.
Exactly. Thank you. All right.
I do. I just do. But
I don't like
realistic.
Yeah, from the fan base. Come on, guys. I think the Jersey fan base is one of the most underrated in terms of knowledge.
They are 100%, Jimmy. They are way undervalued. Yes.
But right now, their frustration, and I get it, but it's a little misguided. You got to look at the big picture here. Like, there aren't many teams that are going to be able to overcome what they've overcome. Just to get to the playoffs was an achievement, I think. And so just keep that, take it with a grain of salt. I think when they come back and they're healthy, they've got guys coming. Let's just breathe in the summer and see where you go from there.
What happens if they add Quinn Hughes?
You had to go there, didn't you, Pierre?
I'm just kidding. No,
You
I'm
just
not
riled
kidding.
that fan base
I'm
up
just
now.
asking, what happens if they do add Quinn Hughes?
By the way, I didn't see anything whether anybody in Vancouver got any calls from the league. I guess we're never going to know that.
That one's one of those where I think it's going to be line ones for you. And you don't. They just say, I need to talk to the management now.
Yeah.
And you show remorse, you
That's
apologize, you say that will never happen again, and I'm prepared to accept whatever penalty. That's what you do.
Yep.
You don't fight back. That's like one of those where you don't fight back.
In the words of Denny Lemieux, you go to the box, you feel shame, you go free. That's it.
That's right.
All right, looking at the other games too, the Panthers and Lightning finally got their series underway.
That was weird. I thought that game was weird. I give Kachuk and Florida a lot of credit, but that was a weird game for Tampa.
That, to me, I had a weird feeling, Pierre, just because of the amount of time that had lapsed before they started this series, that maybe, obviously it's great. You want to heal as much as you can at this time of year, and you want to get everybody ready to go. But at the same time, at this time of year, mentally, lapses like that can backfire on you. And I was wondering if that was going to happen to one of those teams. I got to admit, it wasn't a team I thought. So credit to the Panthers. They came out.
Bobrovsky was good, huh? Bobrovsky was good again.
Yep. For everybody, the Lightning, we're still here. We're the champs still, just in case anybody forgot.
Again, so my mantra's always been you're never in trouble till you lose on home ice. So now Tampa's lost on home ice. So a little trouble kicks in, a lot of pressure for game two.
Right.
You can't go into South Florida down 0-2. You could go 1-1 and you're comfortable, but you can't go 0-2. It'd be big hill to climb. Big hill to climb. So that one still got some stuff to sort out, that series, but I think you can see.
I think when all said and done, we see a heck of a series there still.
I do. I don't think it'll be 5 games like last year.
No,
I just don't think it will be.
I'm feeling 7 right now, to be honest. Then we head out, and man, speaking of teams that have overcome injuries and just faced adversity time in and time out, the Minnesota Wild take a 5-2 victory on the road in Game 2 to even their series with the Vegas Golden Knights.
Matt Boldy. Did we talk about Matt Boldy?
Matt Boldy. The big boys showed up from Minnesota. It's amazing what they can do.
Kaprizov.
That pass, Pierre, to Boldy. Oh, my gosh.
You know what that reminded me of? I'm shocked that all the resources that are going into network TV never showed Erik Karlsson against the Boston Bruins.
2017.
I did the game. I was at ice level. Yep. And I'm sitting there going, where's the clip?
Yeah.
Here's the last time we saw this in the playoffs. Get there.
Yeah.
Get there. Now I'm bringing you inside the TV thing. Like I'm on top. You got to get me that right now. Let's go.
Yeah. That was unreal.
So there's a big thing about the TV ratings today, okay? Mm-hmm. Here's my own, and look, I'm not going to tell people how to do TV, but here's one thing I will tell them. Stop being vanilla and stop trying to be comedians, okay?
Yeah.
Stop being vanilla and stop trying to be and stop being comedians.
Yep.
All the game.
Yep.
And have an intimate knowledge of the things that happened before. Have intimate knowledge of it. I couldn't, Jimmy, after I saw that play, and we should celebrate the greatness of Kaprizov, the greatness of Boldy. Like, that's a spectacular, that's one for the ages kind of a play. It's like Lafleur coming down, getting the drop pass from Lemaire and blowing it by, Gilles Gilbert. That's one of those iconic moments.
It's a moment, yeah. I know.
So that Karlsson, you were in the building that night.
Oh, yeah. I remember it. Yep.
So I was maybe 30 feet away from it when it happened. I'm going, oh, my goodness gracious.
Yeah. He was something that playoff. I'll never forget. Anyhow, listen, we'll get back to the playoffs in a bit. So that's
I got to ask our next guest about that.
We're gonna talk some New York Islanders and some NHL with our good friend. Join us here on the Eye Test once again is our good friend Chris Botta on the Sick Podcast Network here. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Murph, Pierre, how are you guys? All right.
We're good. Hey, I got to ask you, when you watch that Kirill Kaprizov, and I know you watch everything, and you see that pass to Matt Boldy, I just told Jimmy, that brought me back to 2017, Chris. It brought me back to Erik Karlsson against the Boston Bruins in TD Bank. How come nobody on TV brought that up?
Because So I don't know who is the color commentator on the broadcast that you're referring to. Let me say that. I do know that there's an instinct for flash and for jokes and things like that, and perhaps that analysts will learn from that experience and try to give it a little more perspective. But we're not getting better at the TV thing, in my opinion, on the national broadcast. The studio shows aren't as interesting. It's a lot of people agreeing with each other. There's some shtick, there's things like that. But hey, we need to preface this by saying different generations, people like different things. But I think overall, the quality of the TV broadcasts are just not that interesting. There's some really, really good play-by-play guys out there.
I agree with that.
I like what you said there, though, Chris, mentioning the generations. And I've said this to Pierre many times. Look, I get there. We can all, I don't know what year we could date it back to. Maybe let's just go when TNT came in. Okay. So I understand that the NHL felt the need to bring in the new generation, right? To reach out to younger kids and to get them on board. So you kind of went with a more young feel, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And almost at times a little frat boyish type feel, but I get it. You're trying to get the college fan in there, whatever. Fine. Mission accomplished. But at what point do you draw back in lessons from the past and try to combine the past and the present? That's where I want to see them go. You accomplished what you did there. And just like they accomplished bringing in average hockey fans and made them really good hockey fans during the playoffs over the last few years, great job. But I also think at times that this league forgets its roots. And I think that's a main issue to look at as we go forward.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say on that is they'll know the data. They'll see the TV ratings. I understand that right now they appear to be down. Those things can change, a big game, a big series. But, the bottom line will be are the changes working? I'm not too sure they are right now.
Right.
So one of the things that's changing is right in your backyard. Lou Lamoriello is no longer the president and general manager and emperor of the New York Islanders. What happened?
In my opinion, the last few weeks of this regular season happened. A poor performance by the team despite losing Mathew Barzal. The positioning post-trade deadline where Mr. Lamoriello admitted that he had no interest in actually trading anybody. He would not have traded Brock Nelson. He said this is not a rumor, that he would not have traded Brock Nelson, but Brock Nelson declined all the contract offers. And he held on to Palmieri, who I thought was an asset, Pajot, who was an asset, and other players who we talked about leading up to that day.
Yep.
So the fan reaction, owners do not make changes like this just because of the fan reaction. I will say it was extremely intense from the fans. It was very much a big majority. Lou had his still followers and advocates to the very end, but there was definitely a demand for a change. And when they lost that game to the Rangers on home ice,
blowout game,
9-2, right? 4-0, I want to say, after the first period, maybe 5. I also think that changed a lot too, because if the one thing, and we're going to do this whole conversation, and I'm going to do my best to not be rude or anything to Lou Lamoriello, but the one thing that if you're Scott Malkin, you're believing in through the highs and then the lows of the last 4 years, the mediocrity of the last 4 years, is the culture that a team brings that comes with Lou Lamoriello and Patrick Roy. And when you get your rears beat by an equally bad team as the Rangers, who had played the night before, lost, had no pulse left. It was heartbreaking to me because Pierre Laviolette's a friend, but it was over. Things happen. We've seen it with our teams, right? It was over for the Rangers, and you lose 9-2 if you're the Islanders to them. All the talk of culture and spirit and I believe in the guys in the room and all that stuff, and we're going to fight to the end, kind of goes out the door, right? Like even a Scott Malkin who might be in Europe at the time, because that's where his home and business is based out of, you see that score, you see those clips, I think you finally wake up and I'm sure they were thinking about it. I believe that game really fairly or not made a big difference. I think it was a real eye opener. Like, okay, what are we doing here? Maybe it's time for some bold change, some progressive thinking. I certainly salute the owners, Malkin, Collins, and Ledecky for making that move, because it's not easy to say goodbye to a legend.
I'm with you on that. Going forward, what has been the sense in terms of what their direction is, what they want a new general manager, how they see their team? Have they expressed that yet?
They haven't said a thing publicly. Their only statement publicly was that they were cutting ties with Lou, that they were not going to continue with his contract. They thanked him. They have not. Malkin, who has only talked, I believe, once since he bought the team a long time ago, and that was after the change from Garth to Lou. He has not said anything yet. I do wonder, this might be naive of me, but I do wonder with John Collins, who's the former COO of the NHL, who's deeply connected, and he's been assigned with leading this search. And now that Lou is departed the organization, so the chains are off in terms of, what people can do, right? Off the ice, PR, marketing, things like that. I do wonder if the team, and I would recommend this to them, they're not asking me to be clear, but I would recommend that perhaps by Monday that they send out a letter to their fans. Don't need to overpromise. Don't need to throw out fake-o words that sometimes people like me draft for other people. Just something from the heart, a couple of paragraphs that give a little bit of an idea of what you're looking for. Specifically, I don't mean with individuals. I wouldn't be surprised if this results in. It wouldn't be a surprise for Lou Lamoriello to be replaced by 27 people, because the guy worked so hard and did everything that you would almost need to. And I do think there'll be an influx of new blood and maybe even some unique hires in the organization. At the top of the chain, I think there's a good chance that you could see kind of a two-headed system, whereas. Yeah, I would look at it as like a column A and a column B. A column A is maybe that young, maybe somewhat recently retired player or an assistant GM who's deserved his next spot. So there's that category. And then there's, more of the senior executive, somebody who could be a guiding hand, a force, a system of checks and balances. They would have to decide, you can only have one person make the final decision. That's where these things can get screwed up. But as long as you work that out, I think that could happen. So that would be my guess. I also think John Collins' role in the organization. So John is an investor in the team. He also has the title of operating partner. He's the guy who has run an NFL team. He has helped run a league with Gary Bettman and Bill Daly. There really were three people at the top of that directory back then. He's run businesses. He's an entrepreneur. He's highly successful. He's liked. He's connected. I wouldn't be surprised whether it's formally as a team president or president of business operations if John Collins' role increases in the organization in a much more visible way.
I got to ask you, one of the things that kind of got me off track with the Islanders this year was right at the end of the year. What happened with Anthony Duclair and Patrick Roy? I know what was written in the papers. Yeah. That had an ugly thing to it right from the start.
Yeah. So Anthony was injured early in the season, didn't get off to the greatest start. And then of all injuries, I feel like we don't hear about this as much as we used to. I remember our friend Ray Ferraro having a groin injury when he was with us. And those things take a while to come back, and they can really weigh on you mentally because you're skating, right? Like what you can't have, there are worse things, but that's a tough one to come back from. And so when Duclair came back toward the end of the season, his play was really poor. He had the occasional moment, but he also looked disinterested. I think he'd been back long enough, Pierre, that you'd be like, well, he's got to be healthy. I'm a big believer in, if you're in the lineup, you're healthy. You should be playing. You've cleared yourself as a player. The doctors have, the coaches have. So if you're in, you're in. Right? I get playing hurt in the 7th game of the final, but if you're in game 62, it's because you can play. And the Duke's game just was not there. Now, on Patrick Roy, from the moment he started with the Islanders, I believe he had a little bit of a self-campaign to reinvent himself. I think when people would think of Patrick as a player and also as a coach in Colorado and in juniors, they saw him as this fiery, sometimes over-the-top guy. You know, he didn't have a single moment like that, much to my displeasure. Part of me was like, it's fun, it's entertaining. Yeah, I mean, when he got the job, I told the story about how great he was to as a player to a former fellow intern of Merce named Anthony, who Patrick Waugh was just incredibly generous with as a goalie to this young young man named Anthony. So I was rooting for him. Anyway, to get back to your question, it was like he was behaving himself, I think kind of reinventing himself for a long-term position with the Islanders, maybe staying as Lou's head coach. But in the one moment where he realized he didn't snap at a reporter, he would say after they lost games that I thought we deserved better, the same stuff. It got pretty tiresome, I think, to the fan base. But for whatever reason, after this one game when it came to Anthony, he just said, you know, God awful, it was critical. And it was uncharacteristic of the new Patrick Waugh. The next day, it was decided that Anthony was going to take a leave of absence from the team, and he hasn't been heard from since. He was not made available on breakup day. I suspect that Anthony, who's under contract for 3 more years, will come back and perhaps be okay and get his game back. It'll be with the Islanders. I don't think that contract is movable. So it was a bad look for Patrick. It's one of 6 or 7 reasons why I don't think he'll be back as head coach, and why I think the owners might have done the next GM and the next EVP of hockey operations a favor if they had just said goodbye to the coaching staff. And, you know, they could always come back and interview. But, you know, the last thing a new GM wants to do is, fire somebody who he's never worked with. But I just don't think Patrick is going to be kept. The one chance for Patrick is if he's able to stay in the organization in some meaningful way, not as a coach, but in hockey ops.
In your opinion right now, and obviously a lot can change once this new GM comes in, but just if you were GM, what is the future of Mathew Barzal in this organization right now?
I believe he'll be a part of it. I think short term, even if a new GM came in with the idea, like, you know, can I try to move him? Can I try to offset some of that money and build this team in a different way? I think that would be a tough move to make. So if you know I'm thinking about this out loud, I'll never be a GM, don't want to be a GM, but thank you for the opportunity for the next 45 seconds. And if you know that there's probably not going to be takers, you have to, for his sake. The thing about Barzal is he's a guy who genuinely cares. He's also, I believe, immensely talented. I think, in some ways, it reminds me of the first superstar that I had the honor of working with 100 years ago with the Islanders, Pat LaFontaine. And
pretty good one.
He was such a unique talent that they talked every year about who were going to be his wingers. But Patty was able to, so darn good, he was able to do it on his own, So it'd be Randy Wood and Derek King someday. So there's always this thing is like, does Barzal make people better around him? I happen to be a fan of him. If I'm the new GM, I'll put everything into him. That doesn't mean he's going to be here for the next 6, 7, 8 years, whatever it might be. But to rebuild or continue to build a confident guy's confidence. The thing about confident guys, as you know, there's some broadcasters like this too, is that sometimes they're the most insecure people, right? So even though Mathew is this handsome, confident guy on Instagram and his interviews, it doesn't mean that he's always like that, right? So I'd keep him. I'd keep Sorokin. I find people picking into every hole of Sorokin's game weird, because Sorokin, the reason why the Islanders are picking 10th at the draft instead of 3rd is because of Sorokin. Like that would be the reason to be mad at Sorokin. So I digress. To answer your question on Barzal, I keep him, and I think he will be kept.
How much focus is being put on Cole Eiserman and Danny Nelson?
A lot, and I get it from a PR perspective, and also Callum Ritchie. Which I'm happy.
I was going to him next because they're playing in a playoff series. So I was waiting. I
don't think Lou cares about what people think of him or his legacy, but I do think it's nice. Just like, Lou did an absolute miraculous thing with Barry Trotz, where he inherited the Garth, Dougie stuff. team that had been last in the league in goals. They lost John Tavares and they got better. And in 2 years, they were in the conference final, and then they were in the conference final the year after that. The reason why I believe you'll hear a lot about Cole and about Callum and about Danny. I almost wore my Notre Dame top today before I go out, but then I didn't want to be accused of being a Notre Dame homer. My son graduated there. Is that it's only natural to pump your prospects, especially in a moment like this, right? I mean, that was pretty much my career at the Islanders because we didn't have a chance. So I was always talking about the next guys in Yzerman and in Richie. And maybe Danny to a little bit of a lesser extent. They have people who you can genuinely be excited about. They also will have a 10th, somewhere in the top 10 picks this year. So that's good. So I do like that you're going to continue to see in the years to come as the new people build this team, retool this team, that you'll see some of the loose parts there. It's also helpful to a new GM, I would think, that regardless of whether you're the hugest fan of Barzal or not, you do have Horvat there, who's been kind of a rock for the team as a on and off the ice, and I think that gives you some things to build around.
Yeah, gauging the temperature of the fan base. I know it's only been a good 24 hours, just over that this has happened, but. Your take just before that happened with Lou, what was the fan base like at the end of the season heading into the offseason? I imagine negativity, but you talk about prospects here. Was there any sense of hope coming from them that you gathered?
No, from very few. One thing I've learned in this, and this definitely will sound like an old guy talking, but one thing that I've learned in my post career, the last 10 years, and this is a product of social media. And by the way, this is a good thing, is that I have found that this is going to sound so naive, but there are fans that you can never wipe the smile off their face. Like they will, and I wish I was like this. Like I appreciate sunshine, like this incredible optimism that to the very end, no, Chris, you're wrong. Lou should stay. The last 4 years, which, involved 3 playoff game victories total, 2 seasons without playoffs, all 4 years with the new beautiful arena, as Pierre said, about 12 minutes from my house here. There are people who still are just like, no, keep him, keep that. I would put it at certainly more than 3/4 wanted change. I think it might have been a little less than that. But I think these last couple of weeks, and it's funny because sometimes teams overreact to teams playing well at the end of the year, right? Including my Islanders teams, right?
Fool's gold. Gold.
I think it's the biggest fool's goal. I learned that pretty quickly watching there. I was happy. I remember we had one night where we didn't make the playoffs, but 3 guys all got their 30th goal and 2 guys got their 20th. And it was just one big happy party. And it is lovely. I know I could be a jerk, but part of me was like, but it's over. We're not getting in the playoffs again. So, is it surprising every time I check the app and see that the Sabres won a game in March that on paper you would have bet the house on the other team? But this happens all the time. And credit to those teams like San Jose, like Anaheim's. I mean, God damn, I can't believe they fired Crow. I think that's a mistake. I don't think they're ready for their next jump.
It's unanimous here, what you just said.
Okay. And you know what, Greg, come on back to your Islanders. You've always had a home here, and you've been back, and you could stay wherever you want. Fool's gold. I come back to that Ranger loss. There was definitely a sense of, wait a second, what are we doing here? Right? We got Luke, we got Patrick, we got this heart and soul thing. And then we're dropping games like that. So the fans were not happy. And there is no doubt in my mind that Malkin noticed and recognized it. I know there's been some talks from reputable insiders that over the last couple of weeks, some of the owners kind of got together separate from Lou and started talking like, wait a second, I know we didn't want to make a change, but perhaps this is the time. If that's what it took, I would say, that's good. It was time for a change. You never know if you're going to get the next hire, right? It's a humbling sport. Some really smart people All the guys who tried at the Sabres the last 10 years, they're not dumb. They're not incompetent. Sometimes things just don't go right. So I can't promise that. Imagine trying to bet that the next person's going to be better than Lou Lamoriello. I'm not making that bet. We don't know. But it's on these owners who have built businesses, who are connected, who know everybody in the NHL between the three of them, starting with John Collins. It's on them to have a process, to talk to more than 100 people if you have to. Pierre might disagree with me, but I would take 3 or 4 weeks if you have to. I don't care about some BS deadline that we got to get this guy in because the draft is this day. Come on.
Yeah,
they should leave everything out there, and they should take their time. There's no rush.
Okay.
And I would just say this: to be
me and Murph in the meantime could be the interim GMs,
Chris, you know what I love about you? You're a very thoughtful human. You are, and you analyze a lot of stuff. I've known Chris a long time. Okay, so I'm just going to say this: if I were to ask him how much Noah Dobson's worth financially, I bet he would have a comparable for me. So I'm going to ask you, how much you're going to pay Noah Dobson, and what's the term? Is it 8 years?
So if I'm coming in as a new GM,
yes,
the person, I'm actually doing bridge deal, and
doing a bridge,
and I'm holding the line there. Noah can take his time to, within reason, to decide what he wants to do. I believe Noah is engaged. I know he's engaged. I'm pretty sure he's got married. He's established roots here. He wants to stay here. I'm not ready to give him 7-8 years. I just don't know. I get it. You can come in lower on the money with the more years or whatever. But I would rather, the cap's going up. They can keep things down. I'd rather Noah blow me away again and pay a little more in a couple of years than give it all to him now. And depending on I guess when we know who the new people are, knowing what we might know about those people, we might be able to predict what they're going to do. But I don't know that now. I guess I'm just saying, if I was asked, I would be like, really interesting guy. It was a notable step back this season. And again, eye-opening in the bad kind of way. But as I said on your show prior to deadline, I am a fan. It would be an Islander-esque of the 90s mistake and at times 2000s mistake to trade him too prematurely. I just don't think I'm going 7-8 years. I'm going bridge.
All right. Stuff. Chris, we always appreciate you taking the time. This was really insightful, and we'll get you on again down the line. We don't stop in the off season, so maybe once everything falls into place there, we can look back on it and see how it turned out for the Islanders. All right?
That sounds good. I think by May 10th they'll have their people, and I'll try to keep 4:15 Eastern available. All right?
Sounds good to me, my friend. All right, Chris Botta on the Sick Podcast Network. Always a pleasure to deal with Pierre.
He's really smart.
Yep.
I've known him a long time. He did a lot when the Islanders were they were at the top for so long, and then they kind of, and when he kind of kept them bouncing up. He did. He was really good behind the scenes. He did a lot of good stuff for a lot of people, and I hope a lot of those people know what he did for him. He did a lot of good stuff for a lot of people there.
He did some good stuff for me too. I didn't think at liberty to talk about it, but he did help me a lot. So anyhow, one thing I was debating whether to bring it up with him or not, Pierre, but I want to bring it up with you quickly. Yep. So I want to really get in depth about the Bruins press conference that was held with Charlie Jacobs and Cam Neely and Don Sweeney.
I wouldn't call it a press conference.
Friday.
I wouldn't call it a press conference.
I have lots of names that aren't.
I'd call it a disaster.
Yeah, that's a polite way to put it. But there's one thing I just want to take quickly from that, because I kind of connected to the Islanders here and also other teams. When Sweeney was asked directly, I think it was right off the top, from Tara Sullivan of the Boston Globe, asked him, are you worried that, or has it happened already, that when you're interviewing prospective coaches, that they have concerns about the fact that they are now going to be the fourth coach of your tenure since 2017 for the Boston Bruins? And, are you worried that might turn some people away? and which I thought was a very valid question. It's a hard question. It's a direct question, but I think it was very valid and very apropos for right now. He was very aggressive in his answer and kind of took a shot at her, but he said something and he repeated it over and over that I wonder if it's a mistake that a lot of teams make. I don't need to sell this job. The fact that this team is 100 years old and we're the original 6 franchise and this and that and the tradition of the team, that sells itself. And that will make that prospective coach know how lucky he is to being interviewed for this job. Do teams sometimes, specifically original 6 franchises, Pierre, do you think they rely on their past a little too much and lean on it as a crutch? Because that's the gist they got there. No?
They do.
Oh, they do? Okay.
They do. No,
All
no,
right.
they
So
do.
I'm not off.
Here's a statement that I have for you. Tradition should be built, not relied on.
Great.
Tradition should be
I like
built,
that.
not relied on.
I'm going to use that.
And I told that to a group of my players once when they were like, well, we had this guy and we had this guy. And why don't you build your own legacy? Don't worry about those guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's an important part of legacy. Legacy matters.
And you can learn from it.
You absolutely learn from it, but tradition should be built, not relied on.
Thank
The
you.
Montreal Canadiens went down that road where they thought, we're the Montreal Canadiens. We're just going to show up and we're going to be the bleu, blanc, rouge, and we're going to pulverize you.
Exactly.
They were on the wrong end of the pulverizing for a long time.
Yep.
Long time.
I agree with you. I like it.
So here's my concern about what happened with Boston. There was no humility.
Mm-hmm.
There was no remorseful behavior.
Mm-hmm.
There was no sensitivity to the marketplace. And it's almost as if they've divorced themselves from the reality of society. And they're sitting in this white tower overlooking the city of Boston and the state of Massachusetts. And they're like, we're up here and you're down here and we're going to tell you what's right for you. And I can tell you right now, Jimmy, that's not working anymore.
No.
That's not going to work. Yeah. And when I told you this, was it 2 or 3 weeks ago, you asked me and I said, you'll know the Bruins are serious about the rebuild if they go after a center iceman. Do you remember when I told you that?
You do that. Yep.
And I said, if they say they're going after a winger and not a centerman, they're going to be fundamentally.
What was the first thing I said to you when I called today?
Bingo.
Pierre, they're going after a winger. I couldn't believe it. And they were adamant about it. And then they started to list all these centers that they have where they think they fit in and how they can build up the middle with what they have. Yeah, we're going to park some time, maybe the rest of this week, sometime either tomorrow or Friday, or maybe we'll get into in the weekend because it's obviously not a topic that's going away. It's going to sit for a bit, and they got to go out and find a new coach, and we'll get into that. But I'm glad because I was thinking about that even with the Islanders. I mean, think of the tradition they had, Pierre, and all the winning legacy they had.
Yeah, they did. And I'll never forget this meeting I had with the late Bill Torrey. Oh, wow. Bill wanted to talk to me about going to Florida to work for the Panthers a long time ago. And I was the TV stuff was really starting to roll. So I said, you know what? I'm going to be loyal to the people that gave me a chance, but I appreciate it. But later that year, we met at the Hockey Hall of Fame. I still wasn't on the committee. And Bill and I were just talking privately. Nobody else was there. Mm-hmm. And I said, do you have any regrets, like with the down the I always want to learn from these guys. I said, do you have any regrets, like down the road from what happened with the Islanders at the end of your tenure? He goes, I do. I have one. I go, what is it? He said, I was blindly loyal to all those guys that helped us win the cup. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just players. It was scouts. It was assistant coaches. It was coaches. It was support staff. Mm-hmm. He wasn't saying anything bad about them. He said, I needed to enhance the environment. I needed to make it better. I needed to grow it. Yep. And I stopped. Yeah, evolved. He didn't use that word, but that's a better word. Mm-hmm. I needed to grow it, is what he said. I remember him implicitly saying that. And you know what? He was right. Yep. He was right. He took that long walk by himself, and he said, what I do right and what I do wrong. And I'll never forget. We were sitting, for those that have been in the Hall of Fame, we were right in where the Canadians, they have a room, a model of the Montreal Canadiens dressing room in the old Forum. It's right in there. It's right in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right in there.
Interesting stuff. So we'll revisit that in a couple of days, but we do need to get to our sponsors and our games tonight, and then your Q&A over there, because there's some great ones lining up, and we always appreciate that. So let's do that. Let's talk about TCS Customs and Logistics. Unlock the full potential of your shipping operation with TCS Customs and Logistics. From around the corner to around the world, flatbeds to air freight, customs clearance to drawback consulting. TCS is a one-stop shop for all things transport, moving pieces and delivering a peace of mind. For a no obligation customs or freight quote, contact sickpodcast at shiptcs.com. Again, that is sickpodcast at shiptcs.com. And of course, our wonderful sponsors over at BetWay, where you can still go all the way with BetWay and get a free bet up to $200, even if your first bet loses. Now, that's only if you're a new customer. So if you're not a customer, go to that QR code right in front of you if you're watching and sign up for your new membership and redeem that welcome offer. Or you can go to the details section as well on the website if you're only listening, and get your membership there and redeem the offer there as well. It is only available for new customers. Like I said, terms and conditions apply. You must be 18 plus. Please play responsibly. And also, it is not available in Ontario. So if you're betting in Ontario on the Battle of Ontario, you got to take a ride over to Quebec quick to make that bet there on BetWay. But let's get to my sick pick of the night for tonight.
It's time for Sick Picks, brought to you by BetWay.
All right, I'm going to go right to, we're going to bypass the Canadiens Capitals, because I have two ways I'm leaning with that. I'm really not secure on my picks with that game right now, so I don't want to lead you astray. I'm just going to go to that Dallas-Colorado game, and I'm feeling, after the last two games, I'm feeling they clamp it down a bit. I really feel like we're in for a goalie battle out in Denver. Almost feeling I might lean you a bit towards the overtime and the draw, but right now my strong pick of the night is the under 6.5 total goals in that game. You can get that at minus 118 value. So again, under 6.5 in the Colorado-Dallas game. And again, maybe sprinkle a little bit something on the overtime there, which will get you plus 330 value. Before we get to our Q&A, Pierre, I want to congratulate you on a new position you will be having with CBS for the rest of the playoffs. You want to tell our listeners a little bit about it?
I'm really excited. I got approached by CBS probably 10 days ago, and we did a lot of talking last week, and I appeared on a couple of their shows, and looking forward to it. Starting, I think, either later this week. We're Wednesday now, so either later this week or early next week. But we'll be doing a lot of stuff for the playoffs on CBS Sportsline. Yep.
Okay, and what exactly will you be doing? Just breaking down games?
Just breaking down games, being an analyst, selling what's going on in the league right now. We'll probably be talking about coaching stuff and everything else. So I'm looking forward to it. They've been a model of professionalism to me. I've been really impressed. I'm really grateful. So thank you to everybody there. Looking forward to it.
When you have the info, give us the link and I'll put it up there so our listeners and viewers can watch you there as well. All right, let's get to the Q&A. Peterman Dockeros, for Pierre, with the news coming out of Long Island, any interest in the GM job if they call? It would suck to see you leave Sick Podcast. Yeah, it would, Peter. But would you be interested?
No, you're always interested. Jimmy knows this. I've never put it out there publicly, but probably around 7 or 8 years ago, I had a long talk with the Islanders about potentially going to work there. So no, I have a lot of respect for the ownership there. I know both gentlemen very well. I know John Collins, who's now a third part of the ownership, really well from when he worked at the league. So would I be interested? Yeah, but I can tell you, I would tell you straight up, they've contacted me. They have not contacted me. They have not.
Okay. That's what I love about Pierre. He's transparent. Can't say he's not. All right, next question. Swerve 657. Hello, Pierre. Now that Newhook played more center, would it make sense to move him to the fourth line and switch Jake Evans to the second line to create more of a two-way game for Deminoff and Laine? Pierre, I think you might have touched on that a bit with Mitch last night, if I'm not mistaken.
I did. I would think, but I wouldn't move Jake so much. I might move Demidov down to play with Jake and with Joel Armia, and maybe move Heineman up. I don't like to number lines, and I'm going to give you the Bowman School of Hockey 101. Some nights your first line's your fourth, and sometimes your fourth line's your first. Exactly. So I don't like to number the lines, but I would think about putting Demidov with Jake Evans. I think it'd take a lot of stress off him, and I also think it would make it easier for Marty St. Louis to put him on the ice more because he'd be insulated by Jake and from Joel Armia.
All right, next question. Dave Abbott, J&P, can you speak to the Jimmy and Pierre? Can you speak to the Laine trade expectations? I think Laine coming on board to support offensive output and support the 3-year rebuild progression, but do you think Hugo thought they would make the playoffs this year?
I don't think they thought they were making the playoffs. I think they wanted to play relevant games down the stretch to be, almost like playoff games, but they did more than that. They're a year ahead. They're a year ahead where I thought I think Jimmy and I talked about it last summer. They're probably not going to make the playoffs this coming year, meaning this year, but the year after they better be in the hunt and they probably better make it or there's going to be some questions asked. So they're a year ahead of where I thought they'd be and most people thought they'd be.
On that note, Pierre, let's say they somehow make it in the second round, okay? Is there a danger you think, because I've seen it with other teams, where, like you just said, they're sort of a year ahead. Is there a danger they forget that they are a year ahead and this is just they're playing with house money, and then they kind of look at their team in a different way and skip ahead in the progression, so to speak?
This is what I like about having the Hugo group of management. If you have one person running it, they get pretty full of themselves and nobody challenges them.
Yep.
But when you got two guys, they exchange ideas.
Yep.
And it makes things relevant. It makes things important, and it makes different discussion happen. And then you don't get cozy and comfortable.
Yep.
Scotty used to have this thing, push me. I don't want to be cozy. I don't want to be comfortable. We would always be throwing ideas at him.
That's great.
As a staff, that's just how he was. He was awesome like that. And I think he learned that from Sam Pollock. So that was something that I think was really smart about Jeff Molson in Montreal. When they hired Gorton and Hughes, they had guys that were going to push one another.
Good stuff. All right. Next question. Alex Ivanowski, how do you break down a great forecheck like Florida's? Does it come down to just having a bunch of puck movers? Does lack of size get you into trouble, or lack of puck movers more in the back end?
You can break the forecheck against Florida, but the biggest thing is you got to know where your outlets are, and you can't be afraid to move the puck through the middle of the ice. The slower you move it, the easier it is for them to set. So no, there's different ways of doing it. I wish we had a board here. I could show you a little more, but you can beat it. People have done a lot of it. It's just there's certain principles you have to follow. One of them is you got to move it quick and know where your outlets are. That's the number one thing you got to know. And then it goes more than that.
Yep. We need more of that from the Canadians against the Capitals too, I think. All right. Next question. Chris L. Question for Pierre. Could you give me your opinion of UC? I don't know how to pronounce the last name. I apologize. Ahokas, Kitchener Rangers head coach who guided his teams back from 0-3 to win the series 4-3 against the Windsor Spitfires last night.
Michael McKenzie is the general manager of the Kitchener Rangers, and I helped Michael go to St. Lawrence University. His father's Bob McKenzie, the great journalist, the legendary Canadian journalist, and they can't say enough about UC and how good a coach he is. They're really bullish on UC. Michael spent a lot of time trying to get him to come over and coach. And Kitchener is one of those teams. I know for a fact there have been other foreign guys that they've thought about bringing in there. So they've got their minds wide open. They're looking for the best fit for their team. I think that's tremendous. And UC's had a tremendous amount of success there. Tremendous.
All right. Next question. John Smith, Pierre, I need to know, where the hell did that drop pass back into the team's own zone on the power play come from?
Oh my God.
Who came up with that? Do you guys like it? I don't like it.
First of all, it's called the slingshot, and I just can't. Oh my God. All these terms, slingshot, reload, double reload, like just, I think we had a power play that was running at like 28%. We would never even have thought of doing that.
No.
So there's different things to do. I mean, Bob Johnson had the best ideology on the power play. I'll never forget it. And I was there the first day. He was getting ready to run the first practice in Pittsburgh in 1990. And he said, when we're on the power play, we're not setting up behind our goal, because when you set up, they set up. Exactly. We're coming right out with a head of steam, and we're going to make them uncomfortable. And we're going to attack them in waves with speed, and we're going to gain access to zone, and then we're going to set up. Mm-hmm. I was like, that's good.
It's genius.
I like that. Yeah. I like that. And, one of the things, whenever we would play Jersey, because they were the kings of the trap, you never went slow. You had to go fast before they could set the trap. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of, what he was just asking about, the question about doesn't have to happen.
Go forward.
Just move, especially with the red line out. There's so many things you can do. There's so many things you could do with the red line out there, way better than the slingshot. Carol, I will say this, not this past year, the year before, I made a tape, personal, just for me, of Carolina's entries.
Oh.
I thought Carolina's entries a year ago were the best in the league by a mile, and slingshot wasn't really part of it.
No. And that goes back a few years, Pierre. I remember 2022 when they beat the Bruins. I said I wrote about that.
Their entries were awesome, and so I wanted to pay attention to what they did. And I think part of that is because Brind'Amour was such a good penalty killer.
Yep.
That he's like, okay, if they do this, what are we going to do? Yeah. Just the opposite, just the flip side.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. All right, next question. I believe Armia and Laine switch should be the only Habs change.
Could do that. My only concern with Yoel, he's not shooting the puck. I mean, clearly he's got an injury. So that's my concern. That's just my only concern. But defensively, he would help those guys. And I think Evans would help Laine. He'd make Laine skate to keep up. He would. So.
Yep. All right, next question. Tim G. Hi, Pierre and Jimmy. With all the coaching vacancies in the league and the most instances teams seem to recycle coaches, do you think it's time to bring in younger coaches who can relate to young players? I think we're starting to see that. I think we have. I mean,
even then, I don't think you need to do it. Like I tell this story all the time to Jimmy. Scotty's 91 years of age. He's 91.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you right now, he could coach a game tonight, wherever you want him to coach, and he would dominate the other guy in terms of matchups. It wouldn't matter how old the guy is. Now, for practices or maybe socialization, I could see that. I understand that. But I mean, Don Shula coached for 5 decades.
Yeah.
Nobody ever said anything about that. Tom Landry coached forever. Nobody said anything about that. And that sports, you talk about the impact of a coach.
Yeah.
No sports impacted more than freaking football because of the strategies that go into it. The coach has to be on top of things.
Yeah.
So I don't know why hockey's the only one that we got to have these young guys.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm old. It's not because I'm old that I'm saying that. I'm telling you, like I go and work with all these young kids every summer, and I've never heard one say, geez, you're old. Boy, those are bad ideas. And I tell them all the time, if you see something you don't like, tell me.
I'll tell you what.
I haven't heard anything
yet. University of North Carolina seems to be getting some good recruits ever since Bill Belichick took over. So he's up there.
Yeah, that was weird last night. He went to the game and
I saw him
in the governor's box.
Yeah.
So just people, this is for the people
outside. He's in a suit too.
I know, it's for the Carolina blue suit too.
Yeah.
So what he didn't realize, or maybe he did, that arena is where North Carolina State plays basketball. They're big rival.
It's rival.
So Bill,
I thought about that.
Bill came down, and I was like, okay, I don't know. I know he knows the college game, and I know he knows the pro game, but he's kind of hanging. He got booed last night.
Oh yeah.
He got booed.
I remember my buddy asked me what was happening. I said the same thing as you. He said NC State, man. What do you think is going to happen?
NC State in Raleigh.
All right, next question. WPHL, has there been a series like the 2012 Penguins Flyers in recent memory?
Oh, there have been. That was a good one. I worked that one. That was a good one. I mean, obviously you had Giroux involved, and they had a lot of stuff. That was a good one. There've been a lot of good series. I mean, I'm not going to pick one over the other. There've been a lot of good series. One that's, I think, starting out pretty good right now, Jimmy. Like, I'll be interested to see what happens tonight. But if Dallas could ever go in and bop Colorado, and I will tell you in advance, I think Colorado will win the series. But if Dallas bops them tonight, that series is going to have a lot of life in it. It's going to have a lot of juice.
Yeah, it's a big one. All right, next question. Sound the siren. Pierre, you know so many people in hockey, and being what happened in Boston in the press conference, would you recommend that job to a friend? I mean, you said it. It was very arrogant.
I'd recommend the job to a friend for a lot of reasons. 1, it's Boston. 2, it's an Original Six team. 3, it's in a very hockey vibrant community. 4, money will never be an issue. You'll never be looking over your shoulder saying, well, we can't get this guy because we don't have enough money, or the budget on, this is, half of what it would be in another city. I also think that things can be mended behind closed doors.
Mhm.
If you're a coach, let's just say Jimmy goes into interview and Jimmy says, I watched your end of the year press conference and I'd love to be your coach, but I just got to ask you, why'd you say this or why'd you say that? And if he gives you bad answers, then maybe you shouldn't go there anyways. But if he gives you what you want to hear, maybe you go.
Yeah.
But, Donnie said something today that I would say is pretty accurate. There are not a lot of original 6-team jobs. I'm kind of paraphrasing. And he says, we haven't had anybody say, I don't want that job. Now, I think if you went after an elite coach and he had 2 or 3 other offers, that might be his third choice.
Mhm. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So that's where you got to be careful. That's where you got to be careful.
I think it's very situational as to where the coach is in his career, whether he's a first-time coach, second, or like you just said.
First-time guy saying, if you offer me the job, I'm taking it, Rick.
Exactly. You take it no matter what.
The second-time coach might say, I'm taking the job. You know what I mean? The third-time coach who's probably going to have other options, he might say, you know what, I'm going to think about this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you the person, and I'm not going to tell you the year. But I helped one person prepare for numerous interviews. And one of the teams he was interviewing with was Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And when push came to shove, he was offered a job there. But he was also offered 2 other jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And he took the other job. One of the other 2 jobs. He took one of the other 2 jobs.
We'll see. By the way, Dave Abbott, you're too kind. We appreciate it there. Another donation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Really I don't know where you are, Dave, but if you're ever in Montreal, you go to McLean's Public House and tell Stu we sent you. Or if you're in Boston, go to West End Johnny's. Tell John we sent you.
Yeah,
sure.
That's so kind.
Really Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next question. A to Z me. Simple question. If Habs lose tonight, does Wi-Fi get in Game 3?
I thought he's getting in tonight. Can I just say one thing? I've been the biggest Montreal pom-pom raiser in the league this year, right from the start. Even though they were struggling, I was like, you know what? They're going the right direction. Don't panic. I was like, okay, you got to read the room.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's not one player that's going to say, oh, we need Arbar there to behave, to jack us up. Nobody's going to say that. But I'm going to tell you right now, if they were to say, Arbar, you're in, we're dressing 11 and 7 tonight, 11 forwards and 7D, everybody would be a little bigger. They'd be a little faster. They'd be a little stronger.
100% agree.
I'm just telling you, those guys have an impact if you do it right.
Mm-hmm.
So the coach knows his room way better than me, Jimmy.
Yep.
He knows his room way better than I do, but this is maybe a miscalculation. And I hope they win tonight. I don't know if they will, but I hope they do.
All right. Next question. FFFF. Guys, can Arbar Wi-Fi be converted to a 4th-line winger for next year?
Rick Chartrard did this in Montreal when Scotty was there. Chartrard played defense. He also played forward. So they've done it before in Montreal. Now, it's many decades later. Mm-hmm. But Rick did do that. Scotty did it with him. And, they were happy. They liked him a lot. He obviously provided something that you needed to have in those days. Toughness. But he did it.
Yep.
He could do it.
All right. Next question. Zahal, what do you think happens when Laine's contract is up in Montreal? You think he could be better next season?
I think you're going to find out a lot probably at the beginning of next year or this summer even. Mm-hmm. We're going to find out a lot with Patrick.
Yep.
Find out a lot. I think it's too early to tell, but I think you're going to find out a lot soon.
TBD. All right. Next question. FFFF, do you guys see Demidov playing with a puck carrier or pick passer centerman?
I'd like to see him with a passing center iceman, a guy that can play give-and-go hockey.
Yep, me too. All right, next question. Zahal, what is the future with Bruins goaltending, more specifically with Brandon Bussi? That's a great question.
Very good question. That's a very good question.
He has been, by all accounts, surpassed by DiPietro on the depth chart in Providence.
DiPietro had an amazing year in Providence. Amazing year in Providence.
All right. I want to say, because we're fair here. I've been very critical of Don Sweeney today here and on social, but I'll also give credit where it's due. That was a hell of a pickup that went way under the radar. And look at what happened. Remember, he got him from Vancouver. Vancouver was throwing him away. He was an extra guy. Sweeney said, all right, let's take him. Whoever his pro scouts were there, they did a great job. So give credit where it's due there. In terms of the goaltending, very interesting, because I'll tell you what, I got a hunch that Jonas Korpisalo is not with the Bruins next year. That's just my hunch. And
why didn't they call me last summer?
I don't know.
Jimmy, what did I tell you like 5 million times?
Mm-hmm. So it's going to be very interesting, the goaltending situation there. Let's talk about that in like a month. All right, next question. Is that it? We are done. There we go. Great questions today. Really appreciate it. Good stuff.
Chris Botta. That was really good insight.
Chris, if you're watching, thank you so much.
Really good insight on Lou. Really good insight on John Collins. Really good insight on Scott Malkin.
Yep.
Really good insight on John Ledecky.
Yep. On the players too. So I like it. I like what he had to say about Dobson. I haven't heard anyone say that.
No, that's stuff you didn't hear about Dobson from anybody.
Yeah.
That was really good. Here's where I would quibble with it. And it's not, I totally understand his reasoning. I'm a believer that if you bridge a guy, and I use the PK Subban example all the time, when you bridge a guy, it costs you millions, sometimes tens of millions of dollars, because they blow the bridge contract up. They just go crazy, athletically. If you can get the deal done for 8 years, if you know the guy's going to be a star player for you, try. That's my only quibble on the bridge. If you think a guy's a mediocre depth player, bridge him every time. Don't worry about it. Bridge him.
With a star,
if you think a guy's going to be a star player, like what Ottawa did with Jake Sanderson, what Ottawa did with Drake Batherson, what Ottawa did with Josh Norris, what they did with Timmy Stützle, what they did with Brady. I was there for a lot of those. Those guys are going to be the core of that. Now I know they traded Norris for Cousins, but most of those guys are going to be the core of what they're going to do there for 7 to 10 years. That's just, and they're going to be good. You see it already.
Yep.
They're going to be good.
Good stuff. Pierre, you on with Tony tonight after the game?
I am.
Is he going to be in his private jet? Did you see this?
I heard about it.
Yeah, he flew a private jet down with some fans to Washington D.C. for game 2.
They call it a PJ.
Yeah.
Jet.
He's going to be 30,000 feet in the air talking with Pierre after the game. Go check them out there as always on the Sick Podcast.
You know what's the best part about when you fly private jets? You hope it lasts forever, because the first time you get on a commercial jet and you sit in the middle seat and coach, it's not nearly the same.
Is it bumpy though?
Private jet?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
It's not
like the puddle jumpers you go on like Air Canada, right?
No, they're fine. So I'll tell you a good story on this one. One time I was asked to do the opening of a science museum in Anaheim in Southern California, in Orange County. And it was about the science of hockey. And it was sponsored by the Samueli family, who owned the Anaheim Ducks. Back then they were the Mighty Ducks. So I went to the opening, and there were some very wealthy people there. And one of them was flying back to New York that night. And I said, I don't know, if you got room on your plane, do you think I could jump on? Absolutely. So I've never flown from coast to coast that fast. I think it was 4 hours and 6 minutes. Mm-hmm. So at one point, we were at 41,000 feet in this jet, and I guess we got up in the jet stream or whatever, and we were rocket ship. It said 700 miles an hour because you can see it on the computer in the cabin. 700 miles an hour. I was like, whoa. Oh, we're flying.
Oh, look at this. Breaking news, Pierres. We're coming off. Let me see. I just want to is this true? Ron LaRoque is saying news is out right now that the Rangers have extended Chris Drury. Wow.
That's good.
Interesting.
Good for him.
Okay.
Be a good Christmas to the Drury family.
I guess so. Pierre, but yeah, you can catch you there with Tony after the game, and then we'll give more details on Pierre's new gig with CBS as well, so we can direct you there. But you can find him right here with me again tomorrow on the eye test. And tomorrow we will talk Vegas Golden Knights and the Minnesota Wild with our good friend Dave Gosher.
Hey, that's a must-listen to segment.
Oh, he's awesome.
He's really good, and he's got opinion.
Yep, he's got good opinions, and he backs them up.
And I was just going to say, not only is he opinionated, he backs them up.
He does. So looking forward to talking to Ghosh. He's a great guy. Looking forward to that. Here in the Eye Test, thanks to Shane working the boards up in Montreal. This has been another edition of the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.